Google spent over 2 decades becoming one of the most powerful companies on Earth. Billions of people rely on it every single day. Search, YouTube, Gmail, Android. For years, it looked impossible to beat. Then, something unbelievable happened. A company most people only associated with gaming quietly became more valuable than Google. Not by building a better search engine. Not by launching the next iPhone. Not even by competing for Google's users. Instead, NVIDIA built something that Google, and nearly every major AI company, couldn't build fast enough. The strange part? This story didn't begin with artificial intelligence. It began with a risky decision made more than 30 years ago, when almost nobody believed NVIDIA would survive. In 1993, 3 engineers sat down with an ambitious idea. Jensen Huang, Chris Malachowski, Curtis Preem. Their vision sounded simple. Build processors that could handle graphics better than anyone else. But there was one problem. The market barely existed. Back then, personal computers were mostly used for work. Email, documents, simple software. High-end 3D graphics were still a luxury. Many investors didn't even believe graphics processors would become an important business. So why build an entire company around them? Because the founders believed something most people ignored. One processor couldn't do everything well. If computers were going to become dramatically more powerful, they would eventually need specialized processors. It was a bold idea, but bold ideas don't always become successful businesses. NVIDIA's early years were anything but easy. Competition was brutal. Several graphics chip companies were fighting for survival. Some disappeared completely. NVIDIA came dangerously close to doing the same. Its early products failed to impress. Money became tight. The pressure kept growing. For a young company with limited resources, one more mistake could have been enough to end the story. Then, the gaming industry started changing. Players wanted larger worlds, better graphics, higher frame rates. Game developers suddenly needed hardware capable of doing something ordinary processors struggled to handle. For the first time, NVIDIA wasn't selling a luxury. It was solving a real problem. Its graphics processors quickly became more powerful, more efficient, and more popular. The company had finally found its place. But here raised the question, what if gaming was never the real opportunity? What if those same chips could solve a much bigger problem, one that would eventually change the entire technology industry? By the early 2000s, NVIDIA had finally done what every startup dreams of. It had survived. Its graphics cards were becoming the first choice for millions of PC gamers. Revenue was growing. Its reputation was improving. Most companies would have protected that success. NVIDIA did the opposite. Instead of asking, how do we sell more graphics cards? The company asked a much bigger question. What else can a GPU actually do? At first, the answer wasn't obvious. A graphics processor was designed to render images. Nothing more. Or so people thought. Unlike a traditional CPU, a GPU can perform thousands of small calculations at the same time. That made it incredibly powerful for tasks that required massive parallel computing. Researchers were among the first to notice. Universities began experimenting with NVIDIA's chips. Scientists started using them to solve problems that would normally take much longer on traditional processors. Then came another discovery. Artificial intelligence relied on exactly the same kind of calculations. Training an AI model wasn't just difficult. It demanded enormous computing power. Suddenly, the same chips built for video games were proving surprisingly effective at training neural networks. But NVIDIA understood something even more important. Great hardware alone wouldn't create an advantage. Developers needed software that made those chips easy to use. So the company invested in something most people never see. CUDA. Instead of simply selling faster hardware, NVIDIA built a software platform that allowed researchers and developers to unlock the full power of its GPUs. At first, almost nobody paid attention. Learning CUDA took time. Many businesses didn't believe AI would become a major industry. Some competitors focused only on building faster chips. NVIDIA quietly kept improving both, year after year, without knowing exactly when the payoff would come. That decision created something far more valuable than a popular product. It created an ecosystem. And once companies spent years building their AI software around NVIDIA's platform, switching to another chip became far more difficult. The company wasn't just selling hardware anymore. It was becoming the foundation beneath modern artificial intelligence. Then, one breakthrough changed everything. Almost overnight, the entire world started talking about AI. And every major technology company suddenly needed exactly what NVIDIA had been building for decades. For years, NVIDIA had been preparing for a future that hadn't arrived yet. Then, it finally did. The world didn't change because AI was invented. Artificial intelligence had existed for decades. What changed was that AI suddenly became useful to everyone. People could ask questions, generate images, write code, summarize documents. And behind every one of those breakthroughs was an enormous amount of computing power. Companies rushed into the AI race. Microsoft moved quickly. Meta accelerated its AI investments. Amazon expanded its cloud infrastructure. Google pushed even harder into generative AI. But they all faced the same problem. Building powerful AI models required thousands of advanced GPUs. And there was only one company already producing them at scale: NVIDIA. Almost overnight, demand exploded. Technology companies weren't buying a few chips anymore. They were ordering entire systems filled with NVIDIA GPUs to build massive AI data centers. Waiting lists grew longer. Supply became limited. Every shipment mattered. Investors noticed something unusual. NVIDIA wasn't competing with Google for search. It wasn't competing with Apple for smartphones. It wasn't competing with Microsoft for software. Instead, it was supplying the technology that powered almost all of them. That completely changed how the market viewed the company. NVIDIA was no longer just another semiconductor business. It had become one of the most important suppliers in the AI industry. As confidence in artificial intelligence grew, investors began valuing companies differently. The focus shifted from who had the most users to who was providing the computing power behind the next generation of technology. And that shift pushed NVIDIA's market value higher and higher. Eventually, it surpassed Google, not because Google had suddenly become a weaker company, but because investors believed the demand for AI infrastructure would continue growing. Ironically, Google itself was also one of the companies investing heavily in AI hardware. The company that had defined the internet for years was now competing in a race where NVIDIA had already built a significant lead. But history has a way of repeating itself. Every technology leader eventually faces the same question. Can today's biggest advantage survive tomorrow's innovation? It's easy to believe NVIDIA became more valuable than Google because of AI. But that's only part of the story. AI didn't create NVIDIA. It revealed what NVIDIA had been building for decades. While much of the tech industry focused on winning consumers, better apps, more users, and larger advertising businesses, NVIDIA focused on something far less visible: the technology underneath it all. It kept improving its GPUs. It kept investing in software. It kept strengthening the ecosystem developers relied on. Those decisions didn't make headlines, but when the AI boom arrived, they became almost impossible to copy overnight. That's the difference. Google built products billions of people use. NVIDIA built the machines that help power those products. One company became the face of the internet. The other became part of its foundation. And that's why NVIDIA's rise wasn't luck. It was the reward for preparing years before the opportunity existed. Today, NVIDIA sits at the center of the AI race. But technology never stands still. Google is developing its own AI chips. Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, and others are investing billions to reduce their dependence on NVIDIA. So here's the real question. Is NVIDIA building the next Intel-like empire? Or is this simply the beginning of another technology cycle? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you enjoy uncovering the hidden business decisions behind the world's biggest companies, subscribe to Ledger Logic. There's always another story hiding beneath the headlines.